All right. So today, thank you so much for doing this. We're gonna do a little Q&A today. We have, how do I say your last name? Is it Ubaldi?
Ubaldi.
Ubaldi. We have Josh Ubaldi here, and he's going to be talking a little bit about Facebook ads, why it's important for your brand, for your business, and I guess to give viewers a little insight as to the significance of Facebook ads. So why don't we start with your background and how you got to where you are now?
For sure. In fact, it's been like a windy road. I started many, many years ago as an actor, actually, and I lived in New York, and then I popped over to California and was working as an actor for quite a while. And right, the interesting thing, which is really similar to this time, is when you're an actor, you actually do have a lot of time on your hands. So I wanted some supplemental way of making money that was not obviously required to do what a lot of actors do, like work in a restaurant. And I decided I wanted to help other actors market themselves better. So that kind of led me down this crazy path. And so I kind of discovered the world of broader marketing and online marketing, digital marketing. And so I started that business. I ended up in the course of that getting a coaching degree. And in the course of putting that business together, basically, I started running ads for myself, and my ads were doing really well. And people were like, oh, I have a really hard time with ads. Can you just help me out with mine? And so it very organically kind of just fell into my lap how I started doing Facebook ads for other people. Basically just to help other people try to get decent results, because so many people, again, they're boosting a post, they're just putting one thing quickly out there thinking, well, I put stuff out there and nothing's really worked, so Facebook ads can't work, which obviously it's like, if Facebook ads were that easy, everybody would spend $1,000 and make $100,000, right? It would be like, it'd be a no-brainer, but they're just not that easy. So that's kind of the circuitous route that I came to get to where I am.
Excellent. Yeah, you gotta have a strategy in place for sure. So, with like 2.5 billion monthly active Facebook users, and they have all these swaths of information on people that's done by Facebook. Can you tell the business owners at home or anyone trying to promote their brand why that's important, because they have all that information on people?
For sure. A couple of really important things, right? The thing that you're primarily talking about really is this algorithm, right? The amount of information that Facebook and any platform, right? It's important to think when we're spending time online anywhere, the major places that we spend most of our time, right, have a big algorithm where they're crunching information about us. Everybody does who has a big business. Google, Facebook, any of your email platforms, they're all constantly crunching information. When you start marketing a little bit, you realize that everybody's talking about the Facebook algorithm more than other people's algorithms, Amazon. But all those businesses are crunching information. Facebook just does it really, really well. And they're at the top of their game in terms of collecting so much different type of information about every aspect of someone's life based on the things that they click, and then combining it on the back end. So when people are deciding to really dive into Facebook ads, their investment is really in that information, right? When you're paying for Facebook ads, it's a given that you're looking for leads, or you're looking for more sales, but what you're actually paying for is the access to the right people and the system that can allow you to put a structure in place that combines all that information like unparalleled, right? And if you think about Amazon, right? If you're on Amazon, you're looking for one thing and then you start seeing other things, either follow you around the web for sure, but even within Amazon, all of that is Amazon's algorithm combining all this stuff. Well, anybody who has any type of specific enough business, right, where people are niched down and you know who your audience is, Facebook can help you find them because it's just constantly combining all that information really well.
Right. So to add on to that, you mentioned a little bit about this, and in regards to the Facebook pixel, right? So they kind of track. People don't realize. A lot of people don't realize what the Facebook pixel is and why that's significant and why you need to have it on your website. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, can I just say, right? Like my primary business is doing ads for other people. I also teach people how to do ads and with a course and whatnot. But especially when I'm running ads for other people, and I'll be starting with somebody new, doing ads for them, and maybe they've had their business for a little while and they have like a dedicated group of people. And then I go to like take over and see what the website's going on, and there's no pixel. There's no tracking. And it's just such a massive wasted opportunity, right? It's all about opportunity, all right? All of this is about tracking an opportunity. And the hard thing is when you see, you're like, oh, for 3 years you've never had anybody track any of this content, right? Like you have to make a jump into that space of, well, this is a different way of accessing people. And so it's very humbling when you see people kind of be shell shocked, where like, the pixel in a nutshell is just a little bit of code that gets added to a main website, whoever your website is, right? Whoever your website is, whatever business you have, you want the pixel, this extra little bit of code that Facebook provides you, you want it to be added to any web page that you control, right? So obviously we have all these different things that are ours, but we don't control them, right? My Facebook page, my Twitter profile, my Pinterest, LinkedIn, all these other things are pages that maybe I have a page, but that's their business and it's my page on their business. I don't control those pages. But it really comes down to control. If it's my website, if it's any separate page where it's just a landing page or a thank you page that I control that page, your pixel needs to be everywhere, universally, because when someone clicks on that page, that is sending that information back to Facebook and allowing Facebook to then combine all that information so that you get better information as a business, right? So that's the key. There's so many different ways to combine information within Facebook. But for example, right, as long as somebody has a pixel on their website and everybody who gets to their website is being tracked, right? You set up a special audience within Facebook to track that. And that's good, right? The thing that we're always looking about in Facebook terms ultimately is like a lookalike audience. You want to identify a base group of people. And because Facebook has so much information about people, you say, okay, I want you to find people who look like people who visit my website. You direct Facebook to do it. It's not automatic. And Facebook says, okay, I'll look at this group of people and I'll find up to 2 million people who are as similar to this as possible. And you're like, right?
Yeah, right.
That's like a starting point, right? That's a starting point. If you're doing more valuable stuff, which is like people who've opted into a lead magnet or people who have bought something from me, and I say, okay, Facebook, I can either ask you to find people who look like those who went to my website or find people who bought my stuff, right? Like, which are you going to choose? It doesn't matter, right? You're tracking all of it. You get to choose as the business, but you want to go with the more valuable one. You're like, well, these people pay for stuff, right? So I want to find more people like that ultimately.
Right. How valuable do you think posting regular content on your Facebook pages for not just your audience, but for SEO?
This is a great question. I'm so glad you're asking it, because for Facebook, consistency is key. Right? Consistency really makes the difference with everything. So Facebook doesn't want you spamming people, right? Facebook doesn't want you posting 10 times a day where no one's engaging with your content. That's the opposite of what Facebook actually wants, right? You can go in two directions here to extreme ends. You cannot post at all and Facebook's going to reduce your reach. You can even post too much and Facebook will reduce your reach if nobody's engaging with it. Ultimately, especially for people who are newer to setting a system like this up where they're just like, I just want to make it work really well as best as possible. I don't want to have too much work to do. If you post once a day on weekdays, just once a day, or once 3 times a week, right? As long as you're doing that and encouraging, asking people questions, getting people to engage with the content that you're posting out there, right? The best that you can. As long as you're consistently posting, it's very interesting because, right, that's all for free. That's all, you're putting it out there for free. People are seeing it for free. You enter the world of ads and you're paying for it. But even that consistency in the free zone of your Facebook page it allows you to reach more people with the amount you're spending. So if you're like, well, I just want to spend $10 a day, right? As long as you have that consistency, if you weren't posting consistently, let's say you might reach 100 people a day. If you're posting more consistently, Facebook's naturally going to show that 150 to 200 times versus 100. So it stretches your pennies, it stretches your budget much better. So just getting that little consistency in place, like that's night and day difference. And it's a great question. Most people don't think about it, or they go overboard and they try to post too much. There's not enough engagement. And Facebook's like, this is a little sketchy. We'll just keep everything on the low end, and which is
right. And they can penalize you for that too if you're bombarding, right? If you're posting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Facebook's ultimate goal, right, is to keep people on Facebook. And this is why things cost differently on Facebook, right? If you're spending money with ads to get people to like a page or just general engagement or to watch a video where they're staying on Facebook, Facebook keeps that price very low for your ads. If you're asking people to go to your website and leave Facebook and go there to get a lead magnet, read a blog post, whatever you find valuable to move people through your funnel, ultimately you're paying more for that because they're leaving Facebook, right? Facebook wants everybody to stay on Facebook, have a good time, but having a good time also means not feeling like people feel like they're getting bombarded and it's all kind of spammy, that type of thing, right? That stuff is against compliance. It gets taken down. Facebook cracks down. They're serious about it because they really want people to have the best experience.
Right. So for the people who they might have they might think to themselves, oh, I don't have the time to post once a day or twice a day. I just want to say there's apps out there, some of which are free, that you can use, that you could say, oh, all right, on Sunday, I'm going to map out all the things that I want to say and then say, okay, I want something for engagement. I want some compelling images. I want to post some valuable content about my niche, whatever it might be. Have it all set up one day and then schedule it so it's posted every day. And it just takes a lot of stress out, and it's something that, like you said, it promotes consistency, and it's going to benefit you in the long haul, right?
And I'm really glad you said that because I do exactly what you said, right? Like I can't be bothered to take a moment out and switch gears in my brain and try to make a post once a day. Like it's not worth our time when you don't have to. So plenty of apps like you're saying, but even now when you make your page where your posts are going to be, where your ads are technically going to be from, that Facebook page, not your profile, right? Now they have something called Creator Studio, and you can even do those type of batch posts right within Creator Studio where you're going to create a post and then just schedule your post, right? You get to schedule exactly what day, what time you want it to go out. You don't have to send now. And yes, that is night and day difference for consistency. Makes it all very easy.
Exactly. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of split testing and why it's important to run a split test?
Okay, so literally you are like hitting the bullseye with this, because in my experience, the majority of people are solely focusing on targeting, right? They're solely, and I will hear, especially for people with very limited experience with Facebook, even like boosting posts. They're like, I've run ads, they boosted posts, so it's not like fully getting everything out there, right? Most people are focused on one thing, which is reaching the right people who will buy my product or service, right? So people are like fixated on that one thing. In reality, that may be the first step, but the second step, once you've chosen those people, which you're going to always be tweaking here and there, is exactly what you're talking about, which is split testing. I tell everybody who I'm ever teaching, and certainly anybody whose ads I'm actually running ads for them, you should never put one ad out there at a time. There should never, ever be one ad being approved and going into review to get approved and become active. You should always have multiple versions of ads going out there to test the content, because what happens is it simplifies your life. It really simplifies your business. What you're doing with like a really in-depth testing process is you're putting variations of the same thing or something similar out there, and you're just letting your audience choose what they like. That's where people really get overcomplicated, and they're really pushing their agenda, where they're like, I just want people to do this one thing. right? The biggest mistake I see people make just in general with their business and certainly with their ads is that they are really attached to their own content and they're constantly pushing their agenda and asking people for too much too soon. The reality is you got to start exactly where your audience is, right? If you're like, I want these people to come over here, which is buying my product or service, but these people are here, it's a journey to get them from here to here. And you don't always know where most people are in this journey, especially when you're just starting. So the testing process allows you to put a lot of different types of content out there, text, images, all different types of ways to test stuff out. And you let people choose where they are, what's most interesting to them, and you just give them more of that. It simplifies things, and your people tell you what they want. You give them more of that, and you give them a better journey where ultimately they end up buying your product or service with way less friction, less obstacles, right? You've reached them all along the way. Obviously, on the back end and more technically, when you're able to test more stuff, your costs come down, right? If people are, the way the testing process works in a nutshell is you put variations out there, and Facebook, this algorithm does take over after a certain short period of time where you're like, okay, I have these 3 things and most people are clicking this, and it doesn't stay even after that, right? Facebook's like, okay, if people are clicking A, but not B and C as much, I'm gonna show A more because that's what people are engaged with. And Facebook starts using more of your budget to show that single variation, and it optimizes those things out. There's ways to kind of work around that on the back end too, but if you keep doing that, where you're like, okay, A is the winner, Facebook showed me, now I'm gonna stop that and do a different test on a different element of this ad or an audience, right? You just keep working through and your budget goes down, you get more results, you're spending less, it's very simple, and Facebook is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. You just have to come up with the initial things about what am I gonna test? And if you know your audience or just ask your audience, they'll tell you the different things to test, and then you put it out there and let them choose. It gets so much simpler than like the overcomplication most of us have when we're just so close to our own businesses.
Right, exactly. Wow, that is incredible, huh? And so it optimizes your budget like that. Like you said, they do the heavy lifting, and you're gonna want to listen to them because they know what's best, right? So are you talking about not only switching up the headlines, but right, the copy, images, etc., videos, carousel images?
Especially if I have, right, especially for someone, and no, I will test out all of that stuff, but especially for someone who's new to testing, or they have a newer business, or they're new to ads or a new audience, whatever might be new, you want to run through the gamut of everything you've talked about. And the kind of the general order of importance always starts with visual, right? Like always starts with an image or video or those against each other. And then the next thing in the little ad, which is really is the headline, give a few variations of headlines after that. I always test one thing at a time when possible, right? If you have the budget and the time to do that, test one thing at a time. Image, headline, the little description underneath, the text, is there a button, without a button, right? There's so many different ways to test through this type of stuff. Test every single one. Like give yourself the luxury to test that type of stuff. And like a lot of people say, test big differences. You don't, right? I see people like, well, I'm going to test that with a blue background and that with a red background. Like it's okay. Like you don't need to go that small. Like you can play bigger and test different concepts out and see what works. But yeah, test the bigger stuff out. You'll get more bang for your buck.
Absolutely. So what new changes has Facebook rolled out recently that you can think of that people should take advantage of, or that's really interesting?
Yeah, interesting question. Facebook, first off, for people who are not super familiar with Facebook, it is important to know that Facebook changes literally constantly. And that's part of their strength. It's their strength to always have like 100 variations of the entire platform out there at any one time while they're testing stuff out. Because what we just talked about is what they're doing for their own business at all times. And the same thing happens in the back end with the ads manager. If anybody's really watching this and not familiar, when you're running ads fully and you're doing all this stuff, not just boosting posts, you're inside the ads manager, there's multiple variations of that ads manager that's out there getting tested, seeing what's working. So the thing that can be a little crazy for people is that not everybody is always looking at the same thing, right? I may have one variation that's a little newer because I use the platform on a regular basis than somebody else who still has an older variation that to me is like 9 months old, and everything's it can look a little wonky. The functionality is more or less the same, but it does look different. So you kind of ride a little wave. You have to stay a little flexible with Facebook because it does change so much. It's just worth saying that there's two things I always tell people just to like be prepared. Facebook changes all the time and it can get a little glitchy. Sometimes you don't want to fight the platform. It can get a little glitchy. Not grossly, right? People are spending money there. They're very conscious of making sure that it works the best that it can, obviously. But sometimes you're like, oh, everything's a little frozen. Maybe I just need to walk away for a couple hours while the system reboots, which it always does.
Yeah.
But things do change. So what are some of the newer things that have changed? I think the new format that Facebook has given us to actually use visually makes it easier for you to test better, right? Facebook has buttons within that platform that allow you to duplicate stuff and test stuff out against each other, and it makes it quite simple. And then in terms of tracking, so even the simple, right, visually, I loved the look of like the font and the smallerness of the actual look of the older version of Facebook than the one that's currently out for the majority of people, but it didn't have drop downs in the same way. So for example, right, like the way it's kind of created now is it's kind of like little nesting bars where you can visually drop things down instead of clicking through and not seeing what's before, and you can see your results much better, right? The things that you're highlighting, Michael, which are spot on, targeting, right? We're talking about testing. Tracking for me is always the third piece of this puzzle. People are never aware. So few people are aware of the things that really matter when they're looking at their numbers, or they really think about their numbers as something scary, or I'm not a numbers person, right? I'm like the least numbers-based person you could possibly imagine, right? Like I was the only person who like dropped out of calculus in high school, and like, you know, even like physics and stuff, like I'm not scientifically minded. I'm not mathematically minded. It's all very easy in Facebook though, but you have to acknowledge that numbers are there, but your numbers are your people, right? You can't ever forget that. Your numbers are your people, but Facebook's giving you results. Ultimately, it's people results that this equates to, and the different formats that Facebook gives you, it lets you see things a lot clearer, actually. So there's always things changing that platform, but the way that it recently has shifted is you can see results a lot more clearly, and then you can kind of mix and match a lot of information on the back end too. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with the platform, but we're just trying to like keep it as simplified as always it's possible, because things can get very complicated. You're like, it's just a number, right? This is just some variation of what some person's doing right now. That's what I want to know.
So what things do you think that people make the most, like, what are people making mistakes on Facebook ads you see common?
Great. So the first big one really is the boost post, right? The deal with boost post is Facebook is trying to give you an easy way to run advertising, but most people start and stop at boost post, which is the Vegas way of running ads, right? You've entered the gambling zone versus the investment zone, right? Whenever you're investing in anything like advertising, you basically have two options. You can go towards gambling and keeping your fingers crossed and hoping for the best, or you can go towards investing like with stocks or like in real estate, right? Most people are like, I want to own a home someday. Like that's an investment, right? Ads are the same way. I want the longer term investment. I don't want to blow my $3,000 I walked into the casino with in the next 90 minutes, basically. I want that $3,000 to last me as long as I can, right? I want to win all night and bring a lot home, sure. But I also want to let myself play all night and not just blow it within 60 minutes or 30 minutes either. That's the exact same way. When you're putting your own money in, right? My consciousness for all of my students or my clients is like, I want to get the absolute most out of your budget, what you're willing in terms of capital or savings to put into ads. Let's make this go as far as we can, because it's easy to waste the money. So boost post is the biggest mistake, because people, they listen to Facebook. Facebook, what is Facebook doing? They make money by selling advertising. They want everybody to spend a lot of money on their platform. So they make it very easy for you to say, hey, you get to make some choices here, but you can spend $200 and I'll make sure that 10,000 people see your stuff. But then what, right? That's the thing. People are like, oh, I made this nice post, one ad. What do we never do? One ad, but that's right. The post is the one ad. And then they make some choices as to who's getting the ad. And then it goes out there and they're like, I spent $200, 10,000 people got reached. I did my job today. As one of my students said, she was like, when you describe it like that, it kind of sounds like an ego boost. And I was like, that's a really good way of putting it, because, right, like it gives you a little dopamine rush or a little endorphin rush where you're like, I've spent $200 and invested in my business. I really did good for myself today. And it is a bit of an ego boost for you, but there's zero follow-up from that. And majority of people I hear are like, but nothing, I boosted a post and nothing happened. And I'm like, well, what did you expect to happen? Do you even know what happened from that one post? Yeah. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, there's a whole world waiting for you to discover it inside the ads manager, where even if you do boost a post, you're going to get the numbers, the metrics, you're going to see who engaged in it, you're going to see how well it did, you're going to see if people clicked or if they didn't. So, right, most people stop too soon, right? The boost post is most people stopping too soon. And I say, stop boosting posts, learn how to run ads, learn how to see what's going on in the ads manager. Never boost a post, because when you're boosting a post, you're running one ad, right? Instead, set it up in the ads manager, test the heck out of everything and save your pennies and nickels and dimes. And then you're going to get your numbers back there and you're going to be calm the whole time. Boosting posts is crossing fingers. So that to me is always the first thing. The second thing, though, is people who's even go into ads manager and they make an ad and they, again, stop too soon, right? Stopping too soon ends up looking, it has so many variations. I ran an ad, I ran some tests, but I never looked at the numbers. Well, if you ran some tests, but you didn't look at the numbers, you didn't run some tests, Facebook took over, but you don't understand what's going on, right? It's like you stopped too soon. Or, right, starting a little incomplete, right? Within Facebook, for anybody who's catching this, right? We talked about lookalike audiences. That's just a version of all the different custom audiences you can make within the ads manager. So you're like, oh, if someone's taking this action, they're liking my page, they're engaging with my post, they're liking my Instagram, they're engaging with me on Instagram somehow, they're clicking that website. I can create audiences for all those individual things if I tell Facebook to do it. It's not automatic, right? So people who run stuff, but then they're not tracking or collecting that into an audience. The beautiful thing about if you've taken the extra 5 minutes to set up a custom audience or a bunch of custom audiences, you get to retarget those people. So, and as well, right, in terms of saving your pennies, very similar. A lot of people are a little more aware of like Google ads or stuff like that, because Google ads are so much simpler than Facebook ads. You don't get the same results as Facebook ads, but they're very simple in comparison. Google ads, most people make the exact same mistake where they're searching for keywords, right? If in my world, it's like, it's something, let's, for example, maybe it's like hot yoga, right? You want hot yoga and you want people who like are into yoga pants because maybe they pay for stuff if they're buying yoga pants, right? Just as important is your exclusion keywords, right? But I really don't want people who always say X, Y, or Z, because people who always say X, Y, or Z about yoga never buy anything. That's also important. Same thing in Facebook, right? But you do that with your audiences, right? I want to reach these people. I don't want to reach those people, right? In my world, I don't want to reach multi-level marketing people, network marketing. That's very bad for the majority of stuff I do, because they're not interested in going that deep with a lot of stuff, right? So it's very interesting. And everybody's niche has something a little different like that. So it's the incompleteness, right? Most people are doing some part of the ads process, but they're not doing it with a strategy and certainly with a structure. ultimately, the last thing I do want to say about this, which is really the most important thing, and this is the thing I, at this point, insist everybody does that I work with, is visually plan out your funnel, right? You could do it with a pen on paper. You can do it in a PowerPoint and just design stuff, or in a Word document, or you could use something for free like Funnelytics, or there's so many different funnel builders out there, where you're just visually saying, okay, the first step of my funnel is a Facebook ad that goes to a landing page. Someone opts in, that goes to a thank you page. They get an email series. Then they get this offer and that offer. Visually lining something up allows your mind to start being strategic automatically. It also allows you to see, when you're aware of what's happening, which pieces of that puzzle aren't working out. But it also allows you to use Facebook ads for an entire funnel, right? Most people are like, oh, I'm just going to run Facebook ads to get people to get my lead magnet, i.e. have someone come to a Facebook ad and get them on my landing page. Once they're on the landing page, then they do everything else. But, oh, well, what about everything afterwards? You can get the people who didn't want that. You can retarget them to get something else, or go to a blog post, or watch your videos. Somebody further on, you could get them, once they've gotten your lead, to get the next thing in your process, which is a small price product or a larger price product, or, right? There's so many ways to track and make sure nobody falls through the cracks. And most people who don't have a strategy or a structure, they're starting with one thing, or they're just doing one piece of it and they're not doing everything else, and they're not aware of it usually. But ultimately, those are the people who are like, Facebook ads don't work. And it's like, did you really do all you could?
Right.
Probably not. And that's what, I'm here for, you're here for. We're here to help those people fill in the gaps so no one gets left behind, so the ads do work really well. Because Facebook ads are not intuitive, right? That's the interesting thing. Like, it's a skill, it's a learned skill. It is not intuitive. Many things about it are actually quite counterintuitive, but Facebook doesn't do things automatically, right? You have to tell Facebook what to do and it will do it beautifully for you. But if you're not telling Facebook what to do, can't do it. And then you're like, it doesn't work. Actually, you just didn't tell it. You didn't give it the right instructions. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's incredible advice. Yeah, I feel a lot of people don't have that strategy, and they're not leveraging Facebook for what it can do for them. So, especially right now, we're in the midst of a pandemic, and I think that right now is the best time to have an online business. So, what do you say to the people who are just starting an online business, or maybe they're just starting out with Facebook ads? Where does someone like that begin? Where do they start?
This is a great question. First off, I agree 100% with you, right? If the one thing we're seeing, everyone is home, they all have access to the internet. And I have a lot of clients in the business coaching or even self-help space whose clients are telling them, I don't want to go back to 9 to 5. I don't want to have to commute after this, right? I want to start making a big shift. So everything you're saying is so spot on about how people are thinking right now. What can I do? You can start an online business, right? And again, I'm one of these people who's quite conservative, because I think it always works to be more conservative, to say, don't leave your gig until you have something else running that has proven itself to a certain degree, right? Maybe you go back to your 9 to 5, but you have a bit of a side gig where you're figuring this stuff out. Online marketing is not the fastest thing, right? There's so many people who are like, oh, 6 figures in 7 days. I just want to slap those people, right? It's like, it is not 6 figures in 7 days. You've been doing this for 3 years and you made 6 figures in 7 days on your last launch, right? It's a process of learning. But yes, right? Like, ultimately, you have to start in a very easy, methodical, simple way, right? Just like you're saying, get a page going, learn your SEO, get a website, or even just in my world, right, with Facebook ads, in most people's world, you don't need a website. That's a little secret. You don't need a website. You need a page for someone to go to from an ad that gets tracked, right? You can get going with one page, hopefully a thank you page, so you can track the outcome. If they get to that page, they like what you're offering, they give you their email, they get to a thank you page, and you track that, right? That's all you need to really get a business going. And then you can fill in the gaps from there. The thing that I see people getting the most bang for their buck with is is when they start with ads, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, you're not ready for ads. Oh, you're not ready for ads. Well, here's the deal. If you're ready to put a little investment towards learning how ads work and using ads, ads make a night and day difference because of what I was saying earlier, right? You don't have to guess, right? The constant guessing, wondering, hoping, am I giving people what they want? You can use ads to put content and variations of that content out there and test what you are interested in putting out there and let people tell you what they want through their clicks and their engagement, right? It's a very simple way. You can literally do that on $5 a day. Like you can start with $5 a day. You don't have to spend $100, $1,000, right? There's no even need to spend a huge amount of money. Actually, one of the things I'll tell you that is a more recent change to Facebook is something called campaign budget optimization. So if anybody is more aware of the boost post or something like this, right? Facebook have this big thing where they've gone from moving the budget to the targeting level where I'm like, well, people who like yoga pants, I can spend $10 on, and people who like yoga journal, I can spend $10 on, and people who just like hot yoga, I can spend $10 on. You've just spent $30. With this new feature, you can say, I want to spend just $10 a day. But I want you, Facebook, because you're really smart, to figure out where I'm getting the best results and just move that money around in real time based on who's taking that action. And Facebook does that. That's, to me, the biggest recent change that makes a difference for everyone, because your buck goes a lot further and Facebook takes over the control of that. You can manage it in a few different ways to make sure you're really getting what you want out of it. But ultimately, right, like you can start on a very small budget, put a lot of stuff out there, get a lot of engagement back, and tweak as you create your funnel with your audience's participation. That simplifies this experience of most of my clients who are like, I've been doing this for 2 years and I don't have 200 people on my list, and it seems like a hobby, but I really want it to be a business. At the end of the day, people always need to know, like, and trust you. It is the same in any industry, in any business, anywhere where there's an exchange of goods or value, where you're like, well, I need people to know, like, and trust me, right? In the Facebook world, it's very interesting because I see this all the time. I see people, you don't need to have all three, right? You need to have no. That's the interesting thing. People need to know who you are and what you're offering, but they're going to buy from you if they like you. Even if they don't trust you, they will still buy from you. Or even if they're like, I don't know if I really like him, but I trust everything that's happening here. So they either need to like or trust you. And if you got all three, hey, good for you. But ultimately, you can't go anywhere without the no. And Facebook is making sure that you are connecting with your audience. I feel so bad, like I was saying at the start, with people who don't have a pixel on their website, and right, their website's been up for 10 years and they've tracked nobody who's been there. They can't retarget anybody. I'm like, so much wasted opportunity. The worst, wasted time, wasted connections, everything. It's the exact same thing for me when it comes down to people like, well, I'm just hoping to be a guest on a podcast and hope that people find me. No, you don't control that, right? This is a time where we're really in this pandemic realizing everything we do control. And some of it we're not so happy about, and other stuff we're like, I didn't feel like I had that much control over this stuff, but I do. When you're going to start a business and make it really work, it comes down to identify that lowest hanging fruit of everything you control and doing better every day with that type of stuff. And Facebook ads are the very best starting point, right? I'm definitely not a person who's like, Facebook ads and nothing else. Screw Pinterest, screw Twitter, screw LinkedIn, screw YouTube. No, like, you can do those things. You should be doing those things, right? Diversify. Make sure you're in a little bit of everywhere. But you can't do it all at once. You will go crazy because you have to figure out how every single thing works. Start with Facebook ads. You get the biggest bang for your buck. You can control your money, but you can get the feedback from very direct testing to know what people want. And your business growth can be much simpler and less stressful because people are constantly telling you what they want, right? My biggest recommendation for people who are just starting out is not even to test like ad content. It's to create 2 different lead magnets, maybe 3, but at least 2 lead magnets where you're like, okay, I'm interested in selling dog training, but I'm not sure what the first step is people really want to engage with that. Well, I'm going to put two very different lead magnets out there. One is going to be for potty training, and the other one is going to be for sit-stay training. I want to use my initial investment in this business as best as possible. I'm going to put both out there and see which one brings me the fastest money back, right? And again, the interesting thing, most people, and a lot of the ads, you see all these ads on Facebook if you're like interested in this. So they're like, swipe my file, the 100 best ads I have. First of all, if someone has zero strategy and structure, they can duplicate your ads and get zero results. And they're like, Facebook ads don't work. You lied to me, right? Again, it doesn't matter. But ultimately, right, the goal is, you see also what I wanted to say was, right, oh, spend $1, make $4. Spend $1, make $10. Obviously, that's our goal, obviously. But the immediate goal is not the profit. The immediate goal is the break even, right? If I spend $100 on ads, my goal is to be like, how quickly can I get that $100 back? Once I get that $100 back, I'm entering the zone of pure profit. But I got to get that $100 back, right? So it's like, if you're going to spend $100 on lead magnets, start with 2 lead magnets. Let people tell you which one they're most interested in. Make some kind of low-cost paid offer, what's oftentimes called a tripwire or a self-liquidating offer, $7, $20, $47. Usually they're not going to be more than $100. Keep it below 50, keep it below 30, right? Give somebody something small where you can start putting that stuff out there. Because again, people also make a mistake where they're like, I just want to grow my list. Okay, well, you got a great lead magnet. We've been putting it out there. You get less than $1 a lead. You spend $1,000. You got 1,000 people on your list. Did you make that $1,000 back? How are you going to do that? Right? The thing that I specifically see myself differentiating myself from so many other Facebook people is I help my clients, right? When I'm doing ads for people, I have the luxury and the time to spend a lot more time with them than students especially. But right, I'm trying to guide these people to be like, how can we break even faster? If you're spending the $1,000, how are you going to get it back? You got to make some offer. Maybe you don't want to make the $1,000 offer where one thing, right? We've all seen those ads where you're like, one product at $1 million, you need to spend one, you need to sell one. 10 products at $100,000, you'll make $1 million. Right? We've seen those breakdowns before where you're like, just figure out how to get a $10 product out there. Even if your potty training lead is working like wildfire, but your other lead, right, your little sit-stay lead is actually costing you a little more money, but bringing you more money, which one's the winner here? This one's cheaper, this one brings you more revenue. So it's just putting a simple structure like that in place first and trying to keep it simple that you understand it. I'm going to put 2 things out there. I'm going to make 2 offers based on those things, or 1 offer. It doesn't matter. But you see which one is the right thing to hook people in the first place and get them paying attention, and what is the next thing to break even, and then you've won, right? Then any offer you've made after that is profit for you. And then you know, your imagination, your creativity can run wild, and you're like, this will help people, that will help people. Let's see how much they paid for this. Let's see how much they paid for that. There's so many directions you can go in, but you got to start simple. But people who choose to start with ads, they move really fast because they get their audience's buy-in. There's no guessing. They take the guesswork out. And don't forget, they're testing the audiences the whole way too. They know if the people who like potty training, you know, are doing better. The people with older dogs actually bring them more money with the people than younger dogs. The people who like Yoga Journal are doing better than people who like yoga pants. Like, there's so many ways to see this information, but you got to know how to put the ads and get the results in the first place. That's the most important thing.
This has been a wealth of information. And the folks who are watching this at home, you just got a gold mine of information on Facebook ads. But I want to end off by saying that I think a lot of people who are new to the space, they might struggle with inner feelings like they aren't an authority in that niche or that space. And so they don't advertise or they don't even begin. And I think to that, I say that part of the journey is of becoming an authority is through practice and continuously learning and adapting as you go. So, you know, start now, start wherever it is that you are, but just start. That's
I
a,
agree
and
100%.
Josh, you've been incredible today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Michael. It's been great. These have been really great questions, and I feel like you really got inside where people are when they're just getting started and the things that they're like, I don't understand this, or what does that mean? Like, you've been able to nail it, so I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for imparting wisdom on us all. And thank you so much again. Yeah. And so do you want to give a shout out to your website or?
Yeah, for sure. If anybody is interested in getting a better understanding of Facebook ads, my website is FB for Facebook, fbadsmadeeasy.com. Again, it's fbadsmadeeasy.com. And of course, you can find me on Facebook, which my Facebook page is Ads Made Easy with Josh.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Josh.
Awesome. Thanks again, Michael. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you too. Take care.